Maybe our panelists have questions to each other. This is what happens now, I'm sorry. Blame them. Not playing this game. What if I yell at you? Will you ask questions then? That usually works with my students. No? We've got a question here, yes? Somebody just said I have a question.
Yeah.
Yes. I didn't know which one of you it was. I'm sorry. Yeah, now I know. Now I understand.
There's 4 people, sorry. So my question
But please speak into the mic, yeah? Because we're streaming.
Oh, there's mic. Okay, so my question is, will you join me for the Pink Totalitarian activist group revolution?
Yes, absolutely, I sign up.
I'm in.
When are we meeting and where?
I think that should be a clandestine decision.
No, I agree, definitely.
Okay, so my suggestion is that we will meet after this panel in that corner, and we'll decide when and where the clandestine meeting for a Pink Totalitarian movement is going to start.
Yeah, okay, done. Yep. Bye.
Totalitarianism in action. Okay, good. Save us, please, from ourselves. Yes, go ahead.
I wonder if you all could talk about how it seems like the question of whether or not desire can be trained and retrained and reorganized and sort of moved from one point to another through some like deliberate intentional action is like a very high stakes one for like the success of like the left and like with the question of whether or not we'll all like die soon enough is I think it is personally and beyond the couple of tactics that we just heard about for how to reorganize desire, there's an action. Oh my God. What is happening?
Go on.
That's kind of the. Yeah, I guess that's a question. I guess if you all, maybe all 3 of you, could talk about the reorganization of desire through, like, specifically through like deliberate acts, right? Like not just like your desire, the way that you feel, like your desires are affected by your material condition, they're affected by your family, they're affected by all these things that sort of happen around you. That's all very interesting and good and useful, right? To think about how your desires are not your own. But if we're talking about like organizing, or if we're talking about teaching, or if we're talking about changing the hormonal balance of the water system, right? Like, there are probably other tactics, some of which I think, right, sort of 68, 69, like Vienna action. That's a sort of pedagogical action of a sort, right? That sort of makes me think that probably you'll have thoughts about how desires can be reorganized and shifted around deliberately.
So maybe as an on the one hand, I want to stress one thing again, like this, like the naturalized desire, which we speak from, like when we read Freud and when we read like all of the people who we are constantly quoting here. It's not that old. It's just like 250 years. One doesn't have to go back historically so much to see that. It's a phase, and like to treat it a bit more as a phase in relation to our actions, I think is a quite concrete thing. And then maybe just to quote a pedagogical action of someone else, Misty gave a workshop at the Academy of Fine Arts in Nuremberg where I teach, and they started the workshop with writing on the blackboard, "Heterosexuality is the opposite of freedom." And I thought that was a perfect way to start a day.
So the answer would be, of course, yes and no. I mean, first of all, I think you should not fall into the hyper-individualistic trap that you can like express your individual authentic desire in late capitalism. That would be basically very naive. But of course, you can see, I mean, on one hand, of course, desire can be trained because you see through the history of sexuality and of capitalism that, of course, desire is trained to fulfill a certain heteronormative disposition. So yeah, it can be disciplined, obviously. But on the other hand, for example, if you look at, let's say, in the history before 68, if you take a look at empirical studies such as the Kinsey study, it shows that although there is a very powerful heteronormative dispositive at play, people practice desire in very different articulations. So desire is always articulating in manifold ways, although eventually on a social discursive level, it claims to be different. So I think in the after 68 history, on one hand, I think we, as I said, we should not fall in the trap of like like being able to individually like express yourself, to perform like hyper individuality and authenticity. I think that's really a trap, because it's not the individual that owes its desires, not the subject that owes its desires. Always subjectivity that is being produced in desire. But of course, a certain visibility of different forms of desire and of different forms of Beziehungsweisen, of ways of relating to each other, will make it politically more easy to be able to live that freely. So.
And can I add just one sentence? And also, I mean, even heterosexuality is unlike itself. I mean, it's weird to treat heterosexuality as like there are all those people practicing this. It's like there's actually no one practicing this. It's a structure which is like not identical with itself.
I wanna add a third slogan. Okay, I would think learning from neoliberal capitalism without learning from Stalin is learning how to shoot yourself in the knee. Okay, so I would think that what I try to present is exactly not to train yourself in a conscious way, but change the material conditions that frame your desiring or non-desiring, in order to bring about something else. You're not happy with that?
Well, no, it's very good. I guess I wasn't asking about exclusively how to train your own desires. When I asked about like, you know, how do you change desire, how do you organize?
Oh, you want to train
desire,
other people's desires.
We also obviously want to change other people's desires through our own deliberate action, right?
No. Yes to the first part, no to the second part.
Well,
I do not think it's about deliberate action.
Well, deliberate action such as putting testosterone blockers in the water.
That's true, but like, that is a deliberate action. But the actual desire that's going to emerge from that is not a deliberate action.
Yes, that right. So
right?
It's
like
not
this is not the Marxist hero of the working class who's going to lead the revolution and like. You know, there's no dictatorship of the sexual proletariat here.
Yeah, that seems.
The candles are burning out. We have to stop.
Moderation and
So everybody who wants to join there, and we have cake apparently, and balloons.
Let's thank our speakers.